The only thing that hurts more than paying an income tax is not having to pay an income tax. Thomas DeWar. Welcome to Retirement Mentorship, your mentor to and through retirement. I'm your host, Freeman Lindy, certified financial planner. It's tax season again, and many of us are already beginning to get lots of the tax forms, W-2s, 1099s, and the works, so that we can file our 2021 taxes. It'll be a good time to just revisit the difference between tax planning and tax preparation. Many people ask, look, I've already got a CPA, do I really need tax planning? Especially when they're presented tax planning as an option in overall financial planning and retirement planning. They say, well, I don't need the tax planning part of it because I already have a CPA. I already have a tax professional and they do my taxes, so why do I need tax planning? If you want to revisit quickly in this tax season before you file what the difference between tax planning and tax preparation is, and why even if you have a tax professional, you still need tax planning. That's coming up on the Retirement Mentorship Podcast. Why do I need tax planning? While many people do their own taxes, there are, of course, a certain level of tax complexity that will require people to get a professional to do their taxes for them. Certainly, we could learn to do these things ourselves, but it's so tedious and tax is so boring, and there's so many rules and loopholes and caveats that often we're better off paying a professional to file our taxes for us than trying to learn all of it ourselves. Often, it's just one thing that a tax preparer can find that means the difference between you paying hundreds more in taxes or hundreds less. And often that one tax savings that they find can more than pay for their own services. Plus then you don't have the headache of doing it yourself. Some people certainly can do their own taxes if all they have is a W-2 and they just really don't have any complexity at all. It's going to be rather straightforward and a tax professional is not going to be able to find them any additional savings. So you can save a buck by doing it yourself for free or even using an online service. But as soon as you start adding any complexity, such as non-retirement accounts that have investments in them, or you've got properties, or you have this, that, and the other, there just becomes a lot of layers that you're going to want to get a professional to help. And many people then think, well, why do I need tax planning if I already have a tax professional? I've got a CPA or I've got a tax preparer that works for one of the big discount tax preparing firms, H&R Block or Jackson Hewitt or some of these other ones. Why do I still need tax planning? I've already got that covered. Check that box, please. And this thought comes from a mistaken notion that many of us believe that our tax professional is ensuring that we are paying the least amount of tax. But that may not be true. Yes, our tax professional may not actually be trying to get us to pay the least amount of taxes. They might be missing out and causing you, in fact, to pay more taxes. And the difference is, of course, a fundamental difference between tax preparation and tax planning, and they're not the same thing. Tax preparers look backwards, right? They drive looking in the rear view mirror. We get all of our tax forms, they're all required to be sent out by January 31st. And so we get all those forms and then you bring them to a tax preparer and they look at all these forms, and every single one of these forms, your W-2, 1099s, 1098s, 1095As, whatever it is, they all look backward. And they say, hey, what happened last year? What has already happened that's in the books? And now what do we do with them, right? They look in the rearview mirror, they're looking backwards. How do we account for what happened, right? That's why they're called accountants. They don't make things happen in the future. They look backward and account for what has already happened. How much taxes do we owe on what has already happened, right? Are there any deductions or things that we can take to reduce the taxes for last year? They're tax preparers. They prepare a tax return and file it for you for things that have already happened. They don't necessarily look forward. And some discount preparers won't even consider tax saving ideas. They're strictly preparers. They're not what might be called like a tax strategist, right? They only prepare. They ask for your forms, they put them all in the other forms, and they file it for you. and that's all they do, and they're not interested at all in deeper strategies. And they're maybe not supposed to care about that. And so even some tax preparers aren't necessarily even looking for ways to save you money in this year. I remember one particular instance, we had a client that came in and we were reviewing their tax returns, and they had some non-retirement accounts that they were paying an excessive amount of taxes on these accounts that the client was managing themselves because they didn't realize that the things that they were doing inside of the account could or could not make them pay more or less taxes. And they'd been working with this tax preparer, and I won't name what company they work for. Let's call them B&G Square. That they'd been working with this person for like 20 years, and the guy had like 40 years of experience, had been doing it for a long time, and but he was missing this opportunity for this client to save present day taxes, like even last year. Like, he couldn't save it for last year, but going forward, right? Here's a very obvious way that this client could be paying anywhere from $500 to $1,000 less in taxes every year. And it was too late for the previous year, so we told them, hey, if we do these things, right, there's $500 to $1,000 in tax savings every single year if we just move some of your investments around and make some of these changes. And so I called the tax preparer too, just to, maybe they didn't know about this, just to kind of say, hey, by the way, I know that tax preparers are always looking for good ways to save their clients money because it makes them look good. It's part of their job. So I just want to let you know, like, hey, if you see this, I know you're not an investment professional, so you're not going to give investment advice, but if you see this on investment accounts, here's something to look out for. And then maybe you could tell your clients, hey, I notice you're paying more taxes on this account than maybe you need to. You should talk to an investment professional about that and have them coordinate with the tax professional to pay less taxes, right? And so I'm trying to explain this to the tax preparer, and he cut me off. He's like, you know what? I'm not even going to have this conversation. Like, I've been doing this for decades. I know what I'm doing. I'm not an investment professional. I don't touch investments. And basically didn't want to hear what I had to say, and almost hung up on me. Didn't quite, but almost got to that point. And I'm sure he's stressed out because it is tax season. They're doing hundreds of taxes all at one time, hundreds of tax returns. But it was just interesting to me that someone whose job it is to save people taxes in the current year and in the past year didn't necessarily even want to hear more strategies for how to do that. And so some tax preparers aren't even looking for all the ways to save you taxes on this year, and certainly aren't looking for ways to save you taxes in the future. And so I think the step up from just a regular tax preparer would be a tax strategist. Hey, who's someone that is really looking to, hey, what strategies can we take that can save you taxes, right? And how can we, depreciate this asset over these years, or carry forward these losses, or hey, if you do this, here's some ways that we can save taxes this year and over the next couple of years. And you can get some of those, and like a CPA, right, a certified public accountant is going to be more likely to be a tax strategist than your discount tax preparer at one of the big name firms. And so if you have any kind of complexity at all, it might be worth working with a CPA versus even just having a regular preparer do it for you, or an enrolled agent, which is the federal registration for filing taxes. So tax strategists would be like the next best thing, but even they are not equipped to do complete tax planning, and frankly, it's not what you're paying them to do. And why? It's because they just don't see everything. At a fundamental level, tax preparation is, how do we save you the most amount of taxes last year, right? The year's already happened, and how do we go back and save you money on taxes for last year? And with tax planning, the fundamental question is, how do we save you taxes over your lifetime? Not just this year, but every year, over your whole life. How do we save you the most money? How do we keep the most amount of money in your pocket? We'll pay whatever taxes we owe, right? We're not going to try to avoid taxes. We'll pay them what we owe, but let's not leave them a tip. And many tax preparers are very good at their job, right? That is what they do, is they look back and they say, hey, how do we save you money last year? But they would be the first to tell you that they don't know everything else, right? Because to do effective tax planning, you have to know all the rest of your financials. And they'd be the first to tell you that, hey, we don't know what's in your 401k. We don't know when you're planning to retire. And so we can't make a plan for how to save you money in retirement when we, A, don't know when you're going to retire, B, don't know how much money you're going to have when you're retired, and therefore can't know how much income or how much income taxes you will pay in retirement. And so they can't make an effective lifelong tax plan, not because they don't know how to, but because they don't know the details of your life in order to do that. Right? And you're usually not sharing that information with them. They're filing taxes for hundreds of people in a very short amount of time. They're not spending hours and hours with you going through your goals and your plans and how can we optimize this and how can we plan for that. They don't know you to that detail. And so it is not at all a shot against their intelligence or their technical abilities to say that most tax preparers don't do tax planning. It's just not the scope of their work with you. That's not what they're paid to do. They're paid to prepare last year's taxes and perhaps find you a few acute strategies, right? Strategies that will go into effect over the next few years, but not long-term, lifetime tax planning. Some tax preparers, some good CPAs actually will also offer tax planning for an additional fee. Again, it's not that they can't do it. It's just usually not part of their normal tax prep fee, right? And so if they do that, you could work with your CPA potentially to come up with a good tax plan. Often they can work in concert with your financial planner and you can mesh those two together. You obviously want your financial plan and your tax plan to be on the same page and not to be at odds with one another. Or some firms will offer both, right? Like if they're like ours, like we offer tax planning obviously along with our financial planning, but we also do tax preparation for our financial planning clients, not for the general public, but for those clients we do. And then of course it makes it very easy to coordinate both the tax planning and the tax preparation. So you need a good plan, a good tax plan, and you will want that preferably before you file taxes this year. Because the plan may have you do something different with last year's taxes than just filing your taxes. Right? If you're just trying to file your taxes, you might do some deductions or make some moves that would save you some taxes last year that will actually make you pay more taxes over your lifetime. And with a good tax plan, you might reverse those decisions. So you want to do this before, get a financial planner that can work well with your tax preparer, do it together, and make sure that you are saving the most amount of money over your lifetime. And sometimes saving taxes over your lifetime may mean paying more now. And so that'd be the other thing, is to get a good financial plan that includes tax planning, coordinate those with your tax preparation, and be willing to pay more taxes this year to avoid them in the future. Because the end goal should be for you to keep as much of your money as possible, as I believe that almost everyone is a better steward of their money than the government is. And if you have things you care about, then you have a moral obligation, I think, to keep as much of your money as possible and be a good manager, a good steward of that money, and put it to better use than the government could. It's not to rip on everything the government does, but I think you can do a better job. So you should save as much taxes over your lifetime. Your tax preparer is not paid to do that and may not even know how to do that, depending on who you're working with. And so you really need a good financial plan that includes tax planning, even if you already have a good CPA. And your CPA would be happy, I'm sure, to work with a good financial planner. They're not in competition. They're symbiotic professionals that can work well together to save you the most taxes, not just this year, but over your entire life. That wraps it up for today. Our book, 3-Dimensional Retirement Income, is available for pre-order. You can go to 3dretirementincome.com or click the link in the description. And if you pre-order it, you will get a bunch of bonuses as well. So stay tuned for that. Again, 3dretirementincome.com or click the link in the description. And we will see you next time on the Retirement Mentorship Podcast. This podcast is educational only and is not intended to be investment, legal, or tax advice, or recommendations, whether direct or incidental. Again, this is not investment advice. Consult your financial, tax, and legal professionals for specific advice related to your specific situation. Never take investment advice from someone who doesn't know you and your specific situation. All opinions expressed in this podcast are the opinions of the speakers expressing them. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Retirement Mentorship is not affiliated with or controlled by any registered investment advisor, broker-dealer, or other financial services company.